maybe the most chaotic NASCAR season is finally over. 2020 NASCAR is done after months of uncertainty about, if the sport would continue on in 2020, and months of different protocols and just kind of breath holding moments, hoping that everything would be all right. So, NASCAR 2020 is over, and even though I like to uh, talk about stuff bad with NASCAR, I would first like to just go and say good job to everyone involved at NASCAR, everyone who was involved in the whole process with getting back going after COVID. It was really an outstanding job. One of the first major sports back. Um, I think the first major sport back to have fans in the stands, and only had two scares during the season. It wasn't even scares. It was just kind of uh, confined incidents in terms of big scale. Some like crew members got them, but otherwise, the two moments that were biggest were obviously Jimmy Johnson missing the Brickyard and Austin Dillon missing the Daytona Road Course. That's it. Those were the only two big quote scares that we had during the season of COVID. And if there's only two incidents in a season, with that was a very, very well done job by everyone involved. Drivers, crews, whoever it was, NASCAR themselves, the sanctioning body doing a great job putting all these efforts in place to make sure that everyone had a smooth season, that nothing really had to change much. Obviously, they changed the schedule around a lot, and props to them for doing what was best in terms of that. Um, they really put together a unique schedule and just made it work. Somehow, some way they made it work with midweek races and double headers and stuff like that. Going to different tracks, not going to some tracks, going to tracks more than normal. It just worked out, and I'm very grateful that it worked out because we got a full 36 race season. We got all the races in that we were supposed to get, and we did not miss any. Obviously some tracks didn't get races or missed out on some races, and some tracks got add races, but in the end there were still 36-point races and the All-Star race. So we got what we were promised. So a very, very just well done job to NASCAR. Applause, props, whatever it may be. Just kudos to NASCAR for making this season work. But the video is more focused on the championship, the three champions from this weekend. Obviously, in the trucks, Sheldon Creed ended up winning it, his first ever title. Austin Cindric won in the Xfinity Series, his first ever title. And then Chase Elliott, the fan favorite, wins in the Cup Series for his first ever title. So GMS got their Truck Series championship. Team Penske got their Xfinity championship, and Hendrick Motorsports back with a Cup Series championship. But chaotic weekend in terms of the championship races. The Truck and Xfinity races came down to late race restarts, overtime restarts, with some people on fresh tires and some people on older tires, and that really made the whole difference. In the truck race, Sheldon Creed restarted ninth or something, and by the time he got off turn two, he was like third and leading the championship. And he ended up winning the race. Austin Cindric restarted right behind Allgaier. I believe that was fourth place he restarted, and he moved up in 2 laps and battled with Noah Gragson on the last lap and actually passed Noah and won the race with a last lap pass, and then won the championship over Justin Allgaier. The Cup race was not as chaotic as those two races. However, it was still a decent race. It was a pure race. It was a solid race. I wouldn't put it near the top of Phoenix races I've watched. Just think back to the 2018 fall race. That one was really, really good. You think back to this year. I know it was a long time ago, but this year's spring race was pretty fantastic. And even before that, there were some good Phoenix races. 2017 races there were both solid. Even the first 2018 race there was pretty solid. So Phoenix is a very underrated racetrack. I know a lot of people kind of moaned and groaned when it was moved to the finale race. You know, I still would love Homestead to be the finale. I think it's the perfect track for the finale. However, in terms of, what NASCAR wants out of this. This is the closest thing you'll get to a short track without it being a short track. And it's also in a perfect weather location. You think about, having a championship finale the first week of November. You're gonna have to go somewhere where the weather's gonna be nice, and the West Coast is obviously the best thing for that. You go out to Phoenix. They did have some rain at points during this weekend, but it didn't really impact much, if anything. So it worked out in the end. But Phoenix did get some rain, but not. It didn't change anything. Which this whole thing about having the championship on the West Coast, it almost makes me wonder, when they're transitioning Auto Club, they're reconfiguring Auto Club to a short track. I would not at all be surprised. This is fully NASCAR if they were to reconfigure it and then its first race be the championship race. That is just something NASCAR would absolutely do. It's on the West Coast. It just makes perfect sense. It would be a lot of hype. I would not at all be surprised if that race, if it didn't have the championship race when it comes onto the schedule, if it had some huge position on the schedule, whether it be last race of the regular season or some big cutoff race in the chase, I don't think they'll keep it as a part of a West Coast swing unless they do two races at that track. Maybe they have two races there and they have one a part of the West Coast swing and then one in the chase again. Who knows what they're going to do with that. But let's keep talking about the championship, mainly in the Cup Series. That's really what this video is about. So, all four championship contenders, as I mentioned in the last race, I said you can make a case for any one of them. All four are going to be really, really good. And I said, you can't count out any one of them. I talked about Denny Hamlin winning at Phoenix last year in 2019. I talked about Chase Elliott, how he's led lots of laps at Phoenix and led the most laps earlier this season at Phoenix, but didn't get to victory lane. I talked about Brad Keselowski, who led earlier in the season with some damage, ended up falling short to Joey Logano, who ended up winning. So I was like, they all have different things. This is a good track for all of those four, and I said it was going to come down to late in the race that would determine who wins the championship, because I didn't think any one of the four would not be inside the top five late in this race. But early on, Chase Elliott was put behind the 8-ball, so to speak. He failed inspection 2 times, which means he had to go to the rear of the field for the start. So he would have started on pole. He ended up starting back last position, but it didn't take long to move forward. He quickly got up inside the top 20, and then quickly inside the top 10. I believe by the time the comp yellow came out, he was inside the top 10. Then he moved his way up inside the top 5. The car was really, really strong. He ended up, I think, finishing the stage in 3rd position. Stage 1 was all Joey Logano. I'm going to talk about why in a second. But stage 2 then went green. Chase Elliott passed Logano, a little bit later on the stage, but then a yellow flag came out, which kind of shook up everything. Brad Keselowski used some track position that he gained off that to end up winning stage 2. And then the final stage was a fight between Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and Joey Logano. And really, I thought that maybe Brad just had a slightly better car than both Joey and Chase. Denny, at this point, while he wasn't bad, he was still running in 4th. His car was not at all where it needed to be in terms to run with those front 3. He was 4th in class. He was 4th in class. He was just not at all great in terms of the championship contenders cars, which is a shame for Denny. Obviously, he's been going at it for so long and has had so many shots at a championship, but just can't. It doesn't seem like he's able to put it together when it counts, which is very unfortunate, because he might go down as, if he doesn't win a championship, he's going to go down as one of the best in NASCAR to have never won a championship. Right up there with Mark Martin. In terms of that, towards the top of that list, Junior Johnson as well, if he ends up not winning one before he calls it quits on his career. But so going back to this, I think Brad Keselowski had just a little bit better car than the other two. I think at points Chase was better than Joey. Joey was better than Chase. I think those two were pretty equal. I think Chase was maybe just a slight tick better, but I think Brad was better than both of them, but by just a tick. I don't think it was enough to where he would, if he got the lead, he would have pulled away. I think if he got the lead, Chase probably would have stayed right there with them. But the downfall for Brad this whole race was his pit crew. I know a thing or two about bad pit crews. Just ask Heat, the Heat series. NASCAR Heat loves to give me bad pit stops and lose me spots every pit stop, it seems like. But Brad Keselowski, man, I think they lost 10 spots on pit road, under yellow. And even under greed, right? So they had that green flag pit stop. It's stage number 3. It was basically the money stop. It was the final pit stop of the season. And Brad Keselowski's team loafed it. They went in with Chase Elliott, I believe, a second behind him. Maybe even less than that. But we'll just round off to a second. He was a second behind him. He left pit road, I think, over 5 seconds behind Chase. That is inexcusable to lose 5 seconds on the racetrack. That's just inexcusable, especially in a championship race. You can't constantly lose spots like that. Stop after stop after stop. That's just not how it works. You can't win a championship like that. It's nearly impossible to win a championship like that. And it cost Brad. There was never a yellow flag after that for him to catch back up to try and get to Chase. There was just never a yellow flag, and he made up the deficit down. I think the margin of victory is 2.7. Granted, a lot of that was probably just Chase taking it easy the last 20 laps, considering he basically had it locked up as he pulled away from Joey, who started to fade back to Brad. Brad actually gets up to second at the end. Joey gets third, and Denny gets fourth. That's how the championship is. Chase wins the championship. Brad gets second. Joey third. Denny fourth. And that was Chase's 5th win of the season, his 11th of his career, plus an All-Star victory this season, and he ends up winning the championship. And just 2 years ago, he got his first ever championship, or his first ever race victory. Just 2 years ago, he got his first ever race victory. 2 years later, he's won a championship. Granted, he didn't have the best season. I would say he was right there with Brad in terms of good seasons. You know, he was right with Brad and Truex and Joey. I think those 4 were really, really good. Denny Hamlin was just maybe a little bit above them, but Kevin Harvick was obviously the class of the field the whole season, but didn't get to run for a championship, and he was not a factor at all as I had predicted here at Phoenix. There's no way they would let a non-chaser spoil the championship 4 party, so Kevin Harvick was out there. I believe he finished in 7th. He was never a factor all day long. He didn't get stage points at his best track. Just shows how difficult it was for the 4 team. But I think Kevin's definitely the class of the field. Well, I don't think. He was the class of the field this whole season. Denny was a few steps below him and just maybe a step above Chase, Brad, Joey, and them, who all finished really close together in terms of full season points in quotations. Ends up, I think Chase actually jumped Brad in this final race to get 3rd in full season points. So Chase was a top 3 car this season. You know, at points I think he was even better than Denny. Chase just had a slower start than Denny did, which really kind of hurt him in the long run in terms of those full season points. But Chase really came alive this second half of the season, won those 2 road course races, and then won at Martinsville, and then won here at Phoenix to clinch the championship, which is really good for the sport of NASCAR, just the world of NASCAR as it is. You know, even if you don't like Chase Elliott, you didn't want Chase Elliott to win this championship, just think about what this did. Jimmy Johnson, a 7-time champion, has now retired in this race. And Chase Elliott, almost like a passing of the torch moment, wins the championship. This is something the sport needed. The sport needed some young driver to step up and say, I can win championships and I can win a buttload of races. Chase Elliott is that young driver so far. Not many other young drivers have come to this level and said, I can do this. You know, Ryan Blaney's won a few races. Most of them have been in, crazy circumstances, but he's won them nonetheless. But he's just a step below Chase right now. He's not up there on the level of I can win championships. Right now, I think of Ryan Blaney as a top 8 driver. I don't think of him as a championship driver. I can think of Chase Elliott as a championship 4 driver. It's still kind of is shocking to me that I can consider Chase Elliott a champion now, but that's how it is. You know, he is a champion. He won the championship here in 2020. It's hard to believe. Like, I can't even believe it still. I am still in shock that Chase Elliott is a champion. But he did it. He won it. Fair and square, under the format. You know, you may say the format sucks, and I agree with that. However, we have to acknowledge that every champion under this format, they earned it under the format. You know, everyone plays by the same rules. It may not be the best way to crown a champion. However, they all get it based off of how the format is. They win it based off the format, and it goes in the record books like that. So, Chase Elliott is a champion. And, I mean, this is probably his first of a few. You know, I would not at all be surprised if Chase wins 2 or 3 more, even 4 more. You know, I think we could definitely see a driver, win. I think we could see Chase Elliott win 3 championships, 4 championships, maybe even 5. You know, I think he is that good. He is really, really good. And just think, people are going to be retiring soon. Drivers like Kevin Harvick, who got 9 victories this season. Denny Hamlin doesn't have much longer in him. Kyle Busch, how long is he going to go? How long is Brad Keselowski going to go? At that point, who's left? Drivers like Chase Elliott, drivers like Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Eric Jones, those drivers, those young drivers. Who's going to step up of those drivers to say, I'm the next Kevin Harvick. I can win 9 races in a season. Chase has won 5 this season. He's won 11 in his career. That's a lot of races so far in this career. And he still has a long ways to go in his Cup Series career. So, I think he's definitely going to win a lot more races, dozens more races, and maybe a championship or 2 or 3 more. I think he's just that good to do it. And this is really, really good for the sport of NASCAR that the most popular driver has finally won a championship. I would consider it the first time in this era. The last time the most popular driver won it, Bill Elliott, 1988. And the first time since then, the most popular driver has won it. Bill never won it after that. Dale Earnhardt Jr. never got his championship. Chase Elliott finally got a championship for the most popular driver. First time since 1988 that happened. 32 years. It finally happened. But I want to talk about some more things about the race and, in terms of just why the racing is maybe just a little bit more lacking. I don't know why, but they applied PJ1 to Phoenix. I can understand it when it was last season's package where we had big spoilers and they needed to get out of the turbulent air from behind. However, under this package, you don't really need it. You can get up to one another's bumper, right? And what they did with adding that PJ1 was just make the outside groove the dominant groove. It was so good. It was so hard to make a pass on the bottom lane, which was very, very annoying at points. I just don't understand why they add it to Phoenix, especially since Phoenix at points has actually widened out to multiple grooves on its own because of the tire Goodyear brought. Just think of the 27 fall race. At points, drivers were running up against the wall because you could. That's how the tire wore out. It worked like that. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was making time and moving up inside the top 10 before he blew a tire because he was running up against the wall. That's just how it worked out. So, in my opinion, the next time we go to Phoenix, we maybe shouldn't have PJ1. I just don't think it helped the racing much. I think it maybe hurt the racing, if anything. But it was still a decent race. It wasn't a bad race by any means. It was a lot better than last season's championship race at Homestead. That race was not really all that great. At least this year's championship race was pretty decent. I also want to talk about Jimmie Johnson. His final season of competition, his final race as a full-time NASCAR Cup Series driver, and he is the best of the rest. He gets a top 5, a 5th place in his final ever full-time Cup start. It was so cool to see Jimmie go out with a top 5 finish. That I was maybe more happy that Jimmie got a top 5 than I was happy that Chase won the championship. I saw Jimmie's name come up in 5th. I was like, oh, he did it. He got a top 5 to end his career. After a season which looked like it was going to start out really, really well, and he was going to get wins in his final season. He had speed early on. That speed kind of tapered off, but also mistakes hurt that 48 team. You think about when he got DQ'd at Charlotte. That was like over 60 points, I think, that he lost just from that alone. He missed Indianapolis. He spun himself on a restart at Kentucky. There were so many huge errors that could have had the 48 team in the playoffs and the 48 team in contention for wins. It just didn't work out in their favor this season. However, they ended it on a high note, a top 5 finish in his final start. You think about when Jeff Gordon, his final start, he got a top 10. Dale Earnhardt Jr. in his final start wasn't ever a factor. I think he finished outside the top 20. Tony Stewart in his final start maybe got a top 20. So Jimmie Johnson did really, really well for his final start. I'm very proud that that 48 team brought speed in Jimmie's final start. It'll be cool to see him in IndyCar next year to see what he can do on those road courses. And also want to point out the weird trippiness. So obviously people have made the connection back to 1988 where all these sports teams won the championships, their respective championships that season, and then the number 9 car won it in kart, and then Bill Elliott won it. Now here this season the same teams have won, and the number 9 won it in IndyCar, and number 9 with an Elliott won it again. But here's another interesting kind of connection to these championships is 2016, connected to 2016, the last time a Hendrick driver won the championship. That was Jimmie Johnson when he won his 7th title. So think about that. 2 wins leading up to the playoffs, right? Chase Elliott had 2 wins leading up to the playoffs. Get through the round of 16 with some misses on races where he could have won. Think about, Chase Elliott at Darlington had a chance to win that one. Think about in 2016, Jimmie Johnson at Chicagoland or even at Dover, both races where he had shots. And then the other race at Loudon, he just ran well. That was maybe Richmond or Bristol for Chase. Then think to the round of 2. Jimmy Johnson won his way through with a win at Charlotte. Chase Elliott won his way through with a win at Charlotte. Think to the round of 8. Jimmy Johnson won his way through to the Championship 4 with a win at Martinsville. Chase Elliott won his way through to the Championship 4 with a win at Martinsville. Think back to 2016. Jimmy Johnson at Homestead had to go to the rear for the start of the race. Chase Elliott at Phoenix had to go to the rear for the start of the race. Jimmy Johnson wins his first race at that track to win the championship. Chase Elliott wins his first race at the track to win the championship. You just can't make this stuff up. It just, the world somehow has a way of repeating itself. It repeated itself again. It's just crazy. Think about 6 years ago on the day of this race. Chase Elliott clinched the Nationwide Series Championship in 2014. It wasn't the race where he officially won it, but he clinched it. He had clinched it, and it was at Phoenix of all places. It's crazy. There's just so many different parallels to this championship. It's just kind of awkward. It's a almost like a Hollywood script ending, to the season, this crazy season, and maybe the best outcome for NASCAR happened. So that's very, very cool. We think about how we started the season on the high note with the president at the Daytona 500, and with the most anticipated Daytona 500 in history. You have this amazing, plate track package, and you have all this, and then it immediately turns south on lap 2 whatever it was of the Daytona 500, last lap of the Daytona 500, when Ryan Newman got involved in the crash and had to go to the hospital, and we almost lost his life. And then obviously, the COVID crisis hit and slowed NASCAR down. It looked like everything was ruined, almost looked like a dumpster fire. But NASCAR comes back, they do well, and they have their most popular driver win the championship. So it was a perfect ending for NASCAR here in 2020. I'm looking forward to 2021 with the new schedule, some new tracks, and then obviously looking forward to 2022 when the next gen car is released, and maybe we get some more new schedule stuff, and it'll just be interesting to see what happens then. So yeah, that's it. 2020 NASCAR season is over. Just a month and a half left of 2020, and not much longer until we get back racing at Daytona. Once again, the off season is very, very short. So we'll have to see how that goes. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.